Cool. Next slide. So I don't have a clicker, so I'm just going to do the universal this. Great. So I think everybody in the room counts as somebody who's creative. So I'm going to tell you a little story that will be my story. This is me, the tall one, and that's my little brother on the big wheel. And when I was this age, 7, I went to go visit my Uncle Joe, who was married to my Aunt Meredith. So he's not like my blood uncle, and they got divorced shortly after. But I went to go visit them in Boston, and my Uncle Joe had a job that he made up for himself. He woke up every morning at 4 o'clock in the morning and got into a Toyota pickup truck, a little teeny tiny one, and he'd take me with him and we'd drive around, and he knew all the trash routes. And we'd go and we'd pick up all the good trash before the trashmen came, and then fix it up and sell it at a flea market on Saturday and Sunday, which I just thought was the coolest job ever. And one of the things we did that week is we picked up like 3 or 4 broken bicycles. And I'm sure he did most of the work, but he made me feel as if I did it myself, put a bicycle together from a bunch of broken bikes. And he made me feel like I could I was in control of the bike. I could fix it if it broke. And so, yeah. So then I just grew up, and this is a bike I made for my brother. This is me probably at like age 13 or 14. So I just got hooked on this rush that you get when you fix something or you make something. And everybody creative in the room knows, like, when you finish something or you get to the place where you're not willing to work on it anymore, same thing, you get this rush of like, yes, okay, I own this thing, it's mine, and it's now free in the world. And so that's good. So I moved to Seattle when I was 13 and grew up there, and I love Seattle. It's it's a great place, and it's very relaxing, and there's like mountains and water, and I had a group of friends there called Makerbot Labs where I could go, and every Saturday night, me and a bunch of other dudes would go and build robots and stupid things like hovercrafts and giant slingshots to make the hovercrafts go forward and stuff like this. And I had a gig at the time where I was working for Make magazine, and my job was to make a video every Friday and put it up on the internet every Friday, so I had to make something. And I decided, I can do this from anywhere in the world, and I have a cheap apartment. I had a 2-bedroom apartment with old world charm in Seattle for $855 a month, which is just normal in Seattle. And then I realized, so I came to New York for a month because I figured I can be anywhere in the world. I might as well go to New York for a month and Tokyo for a month and, see the world a month at a time. And I came to New York and basically moved here because I got here and it was like, Seattle, you go like, hey, let's do things. And it's a little bit of pulling teeth because people they have to go kayaking and grill salmon. But you come to New York and you're like, let's do something awesome. And people are like, yes, and let's make it more awesome. And it's kind of like, oh yeah? Well, I don't need to sleep. So I came to Brooklyn, ended up staying in an apartment in a sublet for $600 for that month and got hooked. And it's actually around the corner from where we work now. So Brooklyn. Okay. So, but there was no Makerbot Labs in Brooklyn. There was no if there was a community of geeks in 2007 when I moved here, January of 2007, I hadn't met them yet. So I set up what's called a honeypot, a way to collect bears, or at least geeks. And I started something called NYC Resistor Microcontroller Study Group. And this was basically a show and tell where I got folks to come out and show their coolest projects, and the ones that weren't wearing aluminum foil hats, I invited out to dinner. And this kind of, after I did this a few times, there was a core group, and I was like, guess what we're going to do? We're gonna get a clubhouse that we're going to share, and it's going to be awesome. And everybody was like, nah, I don't know. But sure enough, there's an interesting moment where I was like, okay, we're doing this thing, and either you're in, you're putting in $1,000, or you're out. And everybody was in, and as soon as everybody put $1,000 in to like pay for the first month of rent and down, you know, all the deposit and stuff like that, it was like, okay, wait, this is going to work. How are we going to keep people out, or how are we going to make this so it's not so exciting that we can actually, you know, the place doesn't explode full of people? And it was one of those things. It was one of those like kind of great moments where I was like, oh, great, plans coming together. And for those of you who haven't been to NYC Resistor, you're invited on Thursday nights is craft night. Bring a project. It's a hackerspace, so it's a place filled with tools and equipment and materials. And I'm really proud of it. Now it's grown to 50 people. We have more women than any other hackerspace in the world involved. It's a really friendly place. So we're on 3rd and Bergen, between Bergen and Dean on 3rd Avenue in Brooklyn. And Thursday nights come by 6 to like 10, or until we stop. Anyway, I created this space partially because I needed a community where we could make anything. And you know, usually when you think you want to make anything, the first thing you do is you start shopping for tools, which is totally natural. But it turns out one of the things you need if you really want to make anything is you need other people who are smarter in different ways than you. So NYC Resistor worked that way. It was a group of, you know, starting with 9, now 50 of folks who can each do something, oftentimes many things really well. And then we have all the tools. We've got a laser cutter and mills and lathes and saws and scissors and glue guns. And so it's really a place where we can make anything. And so what do you do when you can make anything? You make something that can make anything. So this is the crew, kind of early days. That's my co-founder in the back flipping everybody the bird. My other co-founder smiling behind the guy in red, Zach and Adam. And you can see it really looks very chaotic, and it is. So that's NYC Resistor. So we decided in January that we were going to quit our jobs and make a machine that could make anything. Zach had been working on the RepRat project. I'd been helping him out. And you just don't say no when somebody says, like, let's quit our jobs and make robots. So we started in January, and we really locked ourselves in NYC Resistor, and we literally had a case of ramen, which I really do not recommend. By March, I'd gained 10 pounds, and it turns out there's nothing healthy in ramen, even though it does sustain you. And so we worked, and we were going to launch at South by Southwest. So I had to get on a plane at 10 a.m. on March 13th, and luckily the machine started working at 8 a.m. So I took the prototype to South by Southwest, and didn't get a ticket. I just went to bars and set up the robot and printed out shot glasses. And turns out bartenders are very compelled to fill robot-made shot glasses, so that worked out pretty well. So there's the prototype in the background, and then there's our first machine. And it was really, and I'm really proud of this machine, mostly because it hadn't been done before. At this time, we really wanted a 3D printer, and at this point, machines like this were really thought of as industrial prototyping machines, something you used and spent a lot of money on materials and a lot of money on the machine in order to get trade for time. Because when you make things with injection molded plastic, you have to pay a lot of money for a big piece of metal that's the tool that is the mold, and it takes up to 3 months to get this made. So if you don't like it when that happens, you have to start all over again. So these machines were thought of really for that industrial application, except we just wanted to make one so we could just make cool stuff. So at the time, these machines went for about 100 grand, between 100 grand and $1 million, $1.5 million if you want the Lamborghini models. And well, nobody should have to decide between owning a Lamborghini and a creative tool. So So we made one. We just literally sat down and didn't know how to use any of the CAD tools. We downloaded QCAD, which is a great 2D CAD tool. It's like $30 or free if you don't mind saving every 10 minutes. And just tried it. It didn't work. We tried it again. Didn't work. We tried it again. And it was just an iterative process where every time we solved a problem that we had with it, and then solved the next problem when that problem was fixed. The next thing you know, it worked, and we were like, okay, it works, let's ship it. I think one of the things that we did, right or wrong, but right in that it worked for us, is we just decided once we had something that worked that we would just ship it. So we raised $75K, which if Kickstarter had been around, we probably would have just used Kickstarter and not given up equity. And ordered up enough parts for 20 machines and put them in boxes. And at South by Southwest, we put up the order form, and you could order them. And we kind of thought, okay, we'll sell 10 this month. And then we'll have 10 on the shelf for next month so that while they're selling, we can build the next 20. And then we sold all 20 in like 2 weeks. So we were like, okay, we're screwed. So this idea of like trying things until they work is really key to sort of the spirit of Makerbot, and I think really the spirit of creativity. And I'm sure you all have done something and it's not worked, and then you fixed it. And that's the same feeling that I got when I fixed the bike, of like, this is mine. I fixed it. It's better now. And then, of course, you always find out like, okay, what can you do next? And you do that until either you're happy or you just can't stand to look at it anymore. So it's an innovation machine, really, a Makerbot. You can iterate until you're happy. We made it so that the plastic is really inexpensive. When we started, the competitors were charging like a couple $100s a pound, and we charge like $20 a pound. And we do that because it's just a reasonable markup, and we're not doing the ink cartridge model that screws the customer, which we just have always kind of resented when we bought ink cartridges. So we wanted to make it inexpensive so you can just make something, and then if somebody says, hey, that's really cool, you just give it to them because you can just make more. It's like, it's cool having a factory. So this idea of sharing is critical. One of the things I did before Makerbot was I kept trying to be a professional artist, in that I kept on taking 3 or 4 months off and seeing if I could make money doing something, and then not being able to. But it was a critical moment for me when I found Flickr. Up until I found Flickr, I was in the cult of beautiful objects, trying to create beautiful objects that were things of beauty. And then I started uploading my photos to Flickr, and then more people looked at a photo I had on Flickr than I'd met in my lifetime. And I was like, okay, this is cool. And then I started getting into video and making videos, and at some point, within a month, it was like more people had seen my video than could fit in Mariners Stadium. And I was like, okay, this is cool. So I think one of the, kind of for us, we're an open source company, so we're open source hardware. So when we release a product, we also share all the design files, all the schematics, all the board files for the electronics. And for the software, there's a GitHub repository, and you download all that. And then before Makerbot, we created this site called Thingiverse, which is my favorite thing to do every day, is come look at what new things are in the universe. And this is a place where you can go and share your digital designs. Thingiverse started for 2 reasons. One, we kept on creating digital designs with the laser cutter and 3D printers, 3D files. And we would try and share them, and we had I set up a URL that just had files there, and you could click on them and download them. And then I accidentally erased that. And it kind of became important that we just have a place where we could share things publicly so we didn't lose them. And then also we had been telling our friends, you can download movies, music, and books. Someday you're going to be able to download things. And our friends were like, cool, where? So we're like, okay, we'll fix that. So we made Thingiverse. So this is just a snapshot from a few days ago. And so the 8-bit violin is actually a derivative object. My friend Ranjit made a violin made out of laser cut wood that actually worked. It's 100% laser cut. And it's not really a great violin. It's a violin, it works, but it's not a great violin. So a musician said, I really want this, but I want it to actually work. So somebody actually made a derivative of that and created that one, which is actually like like you could get up on a stage and play that violin. And it looks cool. But that's the kind of culture we have of that we're trying to create and endorse and inspire. This idea that you can make things, share them, and other people can build on them. And so, you're standing on the shoulders of giants, and then if you want, when people are standing on your shoulders and it goes up a few levels, you can stand on that person's shoulders. So it's like standing on the shoulders of giants, like Mobius strip. So other cool things here, there's like this guy, the SD holder ring. This is a guy who makes things on his Makerbot, and he does them on his computer, and then he takes it out to his garage where he has his Makerbot. A lot of people have them in their living room. He's got it in his garage. And he likes to wear sweats that don't have pockets in them. And he oftentimes, between the computer and the Makerbot, sets the thing down and then loses it. So he made a little a ring where he could put it. So it's super practical. And then you've got a thermoforming machine, which is a full-on machine. If you want to thermoform things, you can laser cut that. You've got the ear adapters, which are headphones that you can actually put earbuds in and make them not suck. And then like a little tiny planetary gear set, which is something you turn and it's like a transmission. Somebody made a slug catcher and they weren't happy because you put beer in these things and if it rains it gets watered down and they don't work, so they put a little roof on it. So this is the kind of innovation that can happen in the world when you share, and this is just a little taste. This is like literally my favorite thing to do every day is check and see what new things are in the universe. Okay. One of the other things about this is it puts an interrupt switch in consumerism. Normally when you want something, like say you want a clock, our instinct is to go shopping. Okay, what clocks do I have to choose from? What are my options? The nice thing is when you have a 3D printer, you can just make your own clock. And if you don't like the color of it, that's okay. You can make it in whatever color you want. So this is a clock that is a mechanical clock, which is like 17th century technology made on 21st century technology. And Michael designed this. He's on the right. And this is the Makerbot clock. You can download this and have your own clock. It's pretty cool. It's so, when we started, we actually went to people and we were like, okay, we have a machine and it can make anything. What do you want? And people were like, So this idea that you can have anything you want is a little bit of it's kind of like when there's too many options. It's a little scary, but with Thingiverse you can get inspired, and then you start to see things when you have a Makerbot with Makerbot goggles, and you start to look at things and you're like, okay, that cup, that fits in the build envelope, don't need to buy that. Okay, I need this. The doorknob on like literally it's been on my list, I still have to do it. The doorknob on our apartment, when you pull it straight, it just comes off, so you have to pull it sideways to open the door. And it's been on my list to make a doorknob. There's actually 8 doorknobs on Thingiverse that I can choose from. So I can actually download one of those and modify it if I want to put my baby's head on it or something like that. It's a really different, it's a different way of living when you have a machine that can make you things, when you have the power of manufacturing to go around and look at the world and be like, ha, that could be mine. This is my favorite thing on Thingiverse. This is a Duplo to BrioTrack adapter. So what I love about this is there's no reason for Duplo or Brio to make this. They have no interest in being compatible with another toy system. But everybody who's a parent here who has a kid under 5 has Duplo and BrioTracks, right? So you can make really cool bridges or you can make elevated stuff. You can combine these things and now you have not just, you kind of get a new super toy when you can adapt things. So this is cool. There's no reason for this to exist in the consumer space, but anybody can have one now. Marty, whose username is Schmarty on Thingiverse, before he works at Makerbot now. Before he worked at Makerbot, he had a problem in that he moved and he went to the drugstore down the street to get a shower curtain, and they didn't have shower curtain rings. And he was faced with the real possibility of having to take a bath. Well, no. This is what having a Makerbot is for. He promptly made up some shower curtain rings, and he was off to the races. Right? Good. So this is great. One of the things that you get when you have a Makerbot is you just don't have to buy gifts anymore. So, like this is a heart, and this is probably the best present to give your sweetie ever. When you turn it, it breaks, and then if you keep turning it, it goes back to being a heart. So this is just so cool. If I didn't have a microphone in my hand, you would see me just twiddling this over and over and over again. But you can make Lincoln logs, and then you can make remote-controlled turtle shell racers. Like, who doesn't want this for their birthday? Little robots. So, like, really, it's you can take this to the family home or to your folks' house, and literally you don't have to buy things. You can just show up and be like, yeah, I'm making you stuff. And you just make it, and they'll just stand there going like, oh. You get the kitten watching a goldfish bowl effect. So one of the things that this really is pretty cool, one of the things that makes me really proud is people get these before they feel like they're a maker. They get these just because they know they can download things from Thingiverse and make 20,000 different objects, which is more than you can actually make in your lifetime using this thing. And they get to know the technology. And it's technology similar, making things for a Makerbot is very similar to like using a computer, and most people know how to use a computer these days. So you can use SketchUp or Tinkercad or any of the new design tools that are coming out that are made to be accessible and easy and fun, and you can become a maker if you're not one already. If you are one already, then it's off to the races. So I spent 7 years as a public school teacher teaching, and I kind of got lucky. I came into it from puppeteering, so I got an art job, which is one of the last places that isn't tested out into frustration. But of course, I had to move schools 4 times because they keep shutting art programs down. And but seeing Makerbots in schools and in classrooms and with parents makes me super happy. You can see these kids; they're like making wheels, and I'm not even sure what that is that kid's holding, but he's happy with it. And imagine yourself at, say, 10 years old, 9, 10 years old, with a Makerbot and the ability to make anything. How would that have changed the way that you grew up? How would that have changed the way you approached the idea of being an empowered maker? Like, what would you, kids come up to us and they're like, does it make Legos? And I'm like, yes. And they're like, got it. So, this is Casey Hulgren. Her Thingiverse username is Pretty Small Things, and she is a set designer. She is somebody who, when she's actually got this is all stuff from a show on 42nd Street right now, and she used to have to spend a lot of time with an X-Acto knife, and now she literally makes her designs and starts the Makerbot printing and goes to bed. This is so cool. So she makes all these, like, a lot of these are like period chairs, and she's obsessed with furniture. And so she's like, okay, I don't even know, like, I'm not a furniture obsessive like she is, but I love that she is. And I love that she's making chairs, and that if I want, I can download these and make these, because she shares them all in Thingiverse. She makes all, like, the stairs in the background of that set are Makerbotted. The windows are in set, those are Makerbotted. The whole, yeah. It's, you don't just have to have one of these for fun. A lot of people use these for work. So Casey's a set designer. There's also lots of industrial engineers who design products and use Makerbots to test things out on their desk. And so, yeah. One of the things I'm looking forward to as I leave is you've all got on your little tags, you chose to say, if I had a Makerbot, I'd make. And I'm curious to know what you would make, because we're really at the beginning. It's still the early days. It's like, and if this wasn't the personal fabrication revolution, if this was the personal computer revolution, the Apple II just arrived and it's available. So if you want to be the person who, makes replicas of gargoyles, famous gargoyles from buildings, you can be the person who blazes that trail and makes those designs available to everybody, and maybe you'll catch other people, you'll infect other people with your obsession. If you want to solve a problem that hasn't been solved yet, or you want to take something that just isn't satisfying to you and you think can be better, you can pioneer that, you can blaze a trail into that, and the opportunity is there to really just blaze a trail and do something special. So that's the end, and thank you very much. I'll take questions.